to us. We come from all over to honor Mrs. Hamer. Who is Mrs. Hamer? Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer is a woman just like the rest of us, human just like the rest of us. She's not the only one who died. Oh, many people die even today in Ruleville. More people will die on the same day that she died. Many people died. Why do we come to pick out Mrs. Hamer? We live and we must die. We will not see Mrs. Hamer anymore, not in this life, not in this life. We come to honor Mrs. Hamer because Mrs. Hamer represents something. Mrs. Hamer represents something. We say all men are born and all men die. But while all men are born and all men are on earth, not all men work for the same thing. Some people come and work against the people. Some come and try to exploit the people. Some come and try to make the people work, and from the people's sweat, they steal it and put it in their pockets. When these people die, not only do we not come to see them, we are happy that they are dead. They should have been dead. They've been no contribution to us at all. Others come, and they don't even know why they are here. They just walk through life as if they're in a dream, not trying to understand or comprehend anything. And then others come and they give their life, their blood, and their sweat so the people can move forward. These are the ones we come to honor. This is why we come to honor Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer. This is why we come. This is why we come. We say some come and they don't even know what it's about. Some even come and think they're doing good, and in fact they're doing bad, not only against the people but against themselves. Mrs. Hamer is no different from any of us. Truth is not inside any of us. Truth is outside all of us. Thus, any of us can see. And the fact that we come here to praise her shows, in fact, that she was correct. What is our purpose on earth? We come to praise Mrs. Hamer because we say Mrs. Hamer represents the best of us. Any of us can be a Mrs. Hamer because all of us are born, all of us die. So when all of us die, the people too can come and say good things about all of us. Who is Mrs. Hamer? Mrs. Hamer is just a woman just like anybody else, born on the sweating plantations of Mississippi under Mr. Eastland, a racist pig of the first order. This is Mrs. Hamer. This is Mrs. Hamer who can't read or write. This is Mrs. Hamer. This is intelligent. This is Mrs. Hamer who sweats and sweats and sweats, and everything she produces goes into the pocket of Mr. Eastland. This is the Mrs. Hamer we're talking about. Yes. But this is Mrs. Hamer who, like any and all of us, can see and understand things outside and know the truth. And once we find the truth, live by the truth. This is why we come to honor Mrs. Hamer. She represents not only the best of us, but she's also someone who, once seeing the truth, grabs the truth and will never let go of the truth and will die for the truth. And these are the people we come to honor. Yes, we say Mrs. Hamer is just a sharecropper, one who sweats, one who no one considers. Certainly Mr. Eastland never thought much of Mrs. Hamer. No, Mr. Eastland didn't think that little Miss Hamer could come and disturb and shake and rock and smash his entire system. Who is Mrs. Hamer? She is just a regular sharecropper. Mrs. Hamer understands the truth. Mrs. Hamer saw exploitation. And Mrs. Hamer said that our purpose on earth is to end exploitation. So man will not fight with man, but man will live in peace. But Mrs. Hamer knew that in order to do it, she must do something about it. She got up. She worked. Oh, Mrs. Hamer represents the best in us. Mrs. Hamer came and said, I don't know, but show me. Her blood was spilled in Winona, Mississippi. They beat her to a pulp. Mrs. Hamer didn't stop. She became stronger. I say she represents the best in us. They shot into a house here so many times in Ruleville, Mississippi. But Mrs. Hamer represents the best in us. Once you're moving forward for the truth, the more you try to stop us, the stronger we become. Mrs. Hamer represents the best in us. Mrs. Hamer represents not only the best in us, Africans who suffered here in America. Mrs. Hamer. We say, the more they tried to stop her, the stronger she became. Mrs. Hamer represented the best in us, and that's why they could not stop Mrs. Hamer. If we come to honor Mrs. Hamer, we must imitate her. Or we can speak of her. So all of us, land, thrown out of their own land, oppressed by a vicious, illegal, racist, immoral Zionist system. But like Mrs. Hamer, the more they shoot at them, the stronger they will become. We can be happy today. We know with Mrs. Hamer that there is inevitable victory in our cause.
Happening, and let me know. And in the letter, she described her first meeting with Mrs. Hamer as the summer volunteers in '64 were being trained to come to Mississippi, and after the news of the murders in Neshoba of Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, and after Bob Moses and others had spoke, that night, rivers, and like Martin King, and like Cheney, Goodman, and Schwerner, and like so many others who have died and who will die because freedom is a constant struggle, died for you and died for me, died for the cause of equality. But Mrs. Hamer, we promise you, we will never turn back until we've all been freed.
Oliver Wendell Holmes once wrote that as life is action and passion, it is required of men and women to share the action and passion of their times at the risk of being judged not to have lived. By Holmes's standard, Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer truly lived and leaves to us today an irrevocable legacy of service, of commitment, of sacrifice, and of love. Many of us here in this room today have many memories of Fannie Lou Hamer. The most vivid in my mind is the first meeting in 1964 in the Masonic Temple in Jackson, Mississippi of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, keynoted by Mrs. Ella Baker, who's here today. And following that keynote and true to the traditions of national Democratic conventions and Republican conventions, Mrs. Hamer led the singing for the demonstration, saying and singing, "Ain't gonna let nobody turn us round." And I remember that so vividly because that was the time of the Neshoba County incident, and it was that same day that I had to drive from Jackson to Memphis at night alone. And before I heard Mrs. Hamer sing with her, I was no longer afraid. So has done us another great service, and that she has brought us back councils of government to say today to Fannie Lou Hamer, thank you for your precepts and examples of leadership. Thank you for teaching us not to fear. Thanking you for bringing us together. There's action and passion. It is required of men and women to share the action and passion at the risk of being judged.
You will not see me, and I feel a little self-conscious.
Well, you know. Where you
This won't work now, right? Yeah. A lot more work. No, I mean there's also factory work. Listen, I will be in Durant. Give me a way to reach you.
Oh,
Okay?
I'll give you my
Yeah,
telephone
yeah.
number.
Telephone.
Because I'll be around for a week.
Yeah.
Okay.
What the hell?
Yeah, bad.
Here.
Something in here
Lord.
that's been scratched,
How she doing? She's the same Mississippi. I said she's from Sunrise. Right. Chill.
Report to the office of the church, please.
They had a very good health care plan. It wasn't doctors, but it was finding out about what people need. It was state legislature.
Testing one.
The earth and the world were made. Thou art God from everlasting, the world without end. Thou turnest man to destruction. 1,000 years in thy sight are but as yesterday when it is past. And as I watch in the night, as soon as thou scatter, God is in the midst of her. Therefore shall she not be removed. God shall help her and hills from whence cometh my sin. I believe they have, that's right. Let's see, I think they're going to be.
For those he also predestined.
To be with the family, and I will not mention the names of all who have come in, but in the section where we're doing special tributes, we would, of course, add
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me home, please, Jesus, let me stand. I am tired. I am weak. Oh, take my hand.
And with all of those who love and care for her,
counted her smitten by. She literally, along with many of you, shook the foundations of this nation. None of us would be where we are now had we not been here then. That when we stood up, it never dawned on me that I'd run for Congress one day, much less be an ambassador. The many people who are now elected officials would not be where they are had we not stood up then. And there was not a one of those that was not influenced and inspired by the spirit of this one woman, Mrs. Hamer.
And any of us can do what Mrs. Hamer did. Thus we come to praise Mrs. Hamer. Not because she is Mrs. Hamer, but because she is us. Because she represents the very best in us. Understood her purpose on earth.
And we come to say thank you, Mrs. Hamer. And we come to say, go on to your rest and to your reward. And when you get over there, tell Medgar, tell Vernon Damer, tell Sherney Goodman and Cheney, tell Martin, tell Malcolm, tell Whitney, that the victory is not won, but we're still on the case. We're giving it all we got. And victory.
The women got together and began the women's movement. When we were tentacles, but a movement to bring about the liberation of the himself will be with them. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And there shall be so people who were here knocking on doors in 1964 in that summer, when you said to young white men and women, go back to your own homes and deal with of overeating and bad living, that when we find somebody whose life was totally devoted to the service of others, we should not mourn. We should give thanks. And we are here this evening to give thanks for a great woman a woman who literally not only refused not to be turned around herself, but a woman who literally helped turn this nation round. Amen. On election eve. At 3 o'clock in the morning, I was waiting for the returns to come in. And they hadn't heard from Hawaii, but that wasn't enough. They hadn't heard from Mississippi. And everything in the West seemed to be going against us. And when I first heard that the election might turn on how things went in Mississippi, I said, oh, Lord, have mercy. We came so close. Why did we miss again? And then when they said that Mississippi went our way, I knew then that the hands that had been picking the cotton had finally picked the president. And yet the picking of the president is just one more step along the way. For having picked a president and not having picked a single black elector as Fannie Lou Hamer abroad and not carry on her work at home is to betray everything she lived and stood for.
He's back.